Welcome to Module 7 of UWM Biosafety Training, NIH Guidelines for Research Involving Recombinant DNA and Synthetic Nucleic Acid Molecules. The NIH Guidelines for Research Involving Recombinant and Synthetic Nucleic Acid Molecules are a set of guidelines that all researchers at institutions that receive NIH funding for recombinant DNA or synthetic nucleic acid molecules experiments are required to follow. UWM receives such funding. Thus, all researchers at UWM are required to adhere to the guidelines. This module reviews the basic NIH guidelines concepts you should know as a researcher at UW-Milwaukee and the responsibility of the institution, the Institutional Biosafety Committee or IBC, the Biosafety Officer, and the Principal Investigator or PI. For over 40 years, the NIH guidelines have been revised to provide the most up-to-date guidelines that ensure the following: protection of personnel, the environment, and the public. Adequate containment is implemented for the work being conducted. Recombinant and synthetic nucleic acid molecules are defined by the NIH guidelines as recombinant DNA molecules, molecules that are created by joining nucleic acid molecules that can replicate in a living cell. Synthetic nucleic acid molecules, which are nucleic acid molecules that are synthesized or amplified by chemical or other means, which can base pair with naturally occurring nucleic acid molecules. Molecules formed as a result of the replication of either of the above listed are also subject to the NIH guidelines. It is the responsibility of an institution that is funded by the NIH for recombinant DNA or synthetic nucleic acid molecule work to establish the following. They must establish an Institutional Biosafety Committee or IBC with an appointed IBC chair to lead the IBC meetings. They must appoint a Biological Safety Officer or BSO when high-risk or large-scale experiments are conducted at the institution. An occupational health program must be implemented for high-risk and large-scale experiments. They must maintain an IBC membership with the appropriate expertise as outlined in the NIH guidelines. And there must be 2 members from the community that are not affiliated with the institution that sit on that IBC. The Institutional Biosafety Committee is responsible for reviewing all recombinant and synthetic nucleic acid experiments at UWM. They are responsible for assigning the final biocontainment level. They will provide annual updates of membership to the NIH Office of Science Policy, report any violations or incidents to the Office of Science Policy, develop and provide emergency response plans that include how the institution will address spills, laboratory-acquired infections, containment breaches, and violations. They will provide routine training for IBC members, principal investigators, and laboratory personnel. The IBC chair is responsible for ensuring everyone is trained. A biosafety officer is required for high-risk or large-scale experiments. The BSO is an ex officio member of the Institutional Biosafety Committee. They provide laboratory security and safety guidance to the IBC. They will conduct periodic lab inspections to review lab standards. And the biosafety officer reports to the IBC any issues, violations, accidents, and illnesses. They will develop the emergency response plans for handling accidental spills and personnel contamination. They review lab incidents and assist with remediation and or mitigation. And the BSO will provide technical advice to researchers and the IBC regarding recombinant DNA and synthetic nucleic acid safety and security procedures. It is the responsibility of the principal investigator to perform a risk assessment. This is done in the form of the biosafety protocol submission, which prompts the necessary questions to review as part of the biosafety review and risk assessment. The PI will initially determine classification of experiments under the NIH guidelines and initial containment recommendations. They are responsible for maintaining compliance with the NIH guidelines. The PI is responsible for instructing and training researchers in their lab regarding all lab techniques and safe work practices. It is the responsibility of the PI to be compliant. They must not start any work or modify existing experiments that are classified as non-exempt without obtaining approval or registration by the IBC first. The PI is responsible for reporting all incidents involving recombinant DNA or synthetic nucleic acids to the UWM Biosafety Office to be reported to the NIH Office of Science Policy within 30 days. All meetings are posted in accordance with the State of Wisconsin Open Meetings Law on the UWM report and are open to the public unless posted as to why they are going to closed session. They will be conducted either in person or via Microsoft Teams meetings monthly. The following records are maintained and are available through Open Records requests for open session: attendance, date and place of meeting, meeting minute from prior meeting approval, opening and closing times of the meeting, all major motions, major points approved, and details regarding the protocol review as outlined in the NIH guidelines. These include agent characteristics, types of manipulations planned, source of the inserted DNA sequences, nature of the inserted DNA sequences, hosts and vectors to be used, whether an attempt will be made to obtain expression of a foreign gene and whether the protein and what that protein will be that's produced, containment conditions to be implemented, and the section of the NIH guidelines applicable to the proposed work.